Listen, I've got some pretty cool news to be able to share with y'all. We got into sick week, so we are going at the end of January on a drag and drive, which is sick week. So it's gonna be like 1,000 miles or something like that. We need to build ourselves a truck to go racing. Now, I have never professionally drag raced. Of course, we've taken our stuff to the track and just been like, oh, I'll stab the gas and see what it runs. But like, I've never actually built anything for competition. I don't know anything about competition. I don't know anything about the suspension or any of this other stuff. I've definitely learned a lot, which is why I've been joining Nick on the drag and drive stuff. But me personally, I don't know anything about it. I did a lot of the burnout things, so this is gonna be something new, something that we're gonna get ourselves into. Now, my original plan for sick week was to just simply take our single cab short bed and run this. We can go ahead and kind of dial in the trans tune. We've got a good engine and trans in this thing. However, this thing is heavy. At UCC, we scaled this thing without any bumpers, no tailgate, no hood, no interior. Like, it was stripped down as light as we could get it, and it weighed 5,550 with me in it. So it's just so ridiculously heavy, it doesn't make any sense to do it. And especially now that we have the tailgate, the bumpers, the full Cadillac interior, like, this thing would be the most comfortable thing to do, but we would have to cage it for the time that we're running. And realistically, this thing is so heavy, it just doesn't make any sense to run it. And I've had it in my heart that I want to Duramax swap an 89 to 91, that like F-150 looking style Ranger. I want to do a single cab long bed, put a Duramax in it, and do all this other crap. However, based off of the rules for drag racing, you can't modify the floor or the firewall. And putting an Allison in a Ranger, you're gonna have to cut that firewall up. So I kind of kicked that whole idea out of it. Maybe we'll circle back to that later, but it wouldn't be possible to put an Allison in a Ranger without absolutely cutting up the floor and firewall. So after killing the whole Ranger idea, I finally moved on to the next thing. So as y'all know, we have the BuiltFmax, and the idea behind the BuiltFmax is it is a C-Series pickup truck with a Duramax in it. So it's a C-Series Duramax C-Max. That's how you get to that. It's a pretty straightforward idea. I like these things, they work. It's kind of what I built my name off of. So, in keeping with that tradition, I am presenting to the world the BuiltFmax. This is going to be our drag and drive truck. So this is a 1990 something F-250 single cab long bed. Now, this is nowhere near as light as a Ranger is. However, it is already 1,400 pounds lighter than what the Shorty is, which is incredible weight savings considering that there's still a lot we can do to this thing. And my plan for this truck is to do a Duramax Allison combination. Now, I know that there are definitely a lot of better ways to go about building a drag racing vehicle. Look at Wyatt, look at Rick. They're both running 4L80s. A 4L80 would cut down on the rotating mass, it would cut down on the parasitic loss of the transmission, and it would be a lighter transmission, so we're gonna save weight on it. However, I've already decided that we're gonna be doing drag and drive, so we can't just take this to the track, run it down the track, and then put it on the trailer and take it home. This thing has to be able to drive from track to track to track. It's gotta go 1,000 miles in a week. And I trust these Allison transmissions to take an absolute beating for an entire week and not check up once. After watching Chris Patterson at Race Week 2.0, Rocky Mountain Race Week 2.0, the 48 and the Cummins that he's got, absolutely fantastic setup for it. It's quick, it works, makes good power, he runs a fantastic number. However, the transmissions are wear items. You know, it's not something that you're able to just keep using for a season. Like, you're gonna make it 2 or 3 days and then you're gonna have to change that transmission out. Chris Patterson had to change that trans out. It's what happens when you're at that level. And to be able to do drag and drive stuff, I've decided it doesn't make sense to have to change out a transmission on Wednesday or Thursday to be able to go and finish up the deal on Friday. We're just going to go ahead and take the weight loss, the parasitic drag from the Allison, and put an Allison in it. We'll just make more power to overcome whatever the issue is, but we're not going to have the reliability issues. Our clutches are so much bigger, our shafts are so much bigger. Like, it's a big, beefy transmission that we shouldn't have to worry about, and that means a lot to me for a drag and drive. An Allison might not make us competitive, but it will make us reliable, and that's something that we're looking for, considering that I have never built a drag racing vehicle. I don't know anything about drag racing, so in the process of learning, we're going to tear a lot of stuff up. Worrying about a transmission is one less thing that I'm going to have to worry about, and that's going to be huge. That's going to make our whole, whatever you want to call this program, a ton better. It's going to make this truck more reliable, and that's what we're after. We want to be able to run, I don't know, I'm thinking I want to run 10s throughout all sick week. So to run 10s in a diesel pickup truck, you're cooking. Now, with the trans out of the way, we're going to do an LBZ block with an LV7 top end. It's going to be something kind of like this motor right here, you know, LV7 top end. It'll be LV7 electronics, LV7 rotating assembly. I don't know what turbo we're going to use. I want to use that Stealth 67 or their hybrid for the compound setup, but I don't know. We might end up having to go to a different, like a T6 turbo in the valley. Now I'm going to be running a triple turbo setup. Nobody is running a triple turbo setup on a drag and drive. There's probably a reason for that. I'm going to figure it out as to why not. I mean, I want to be able to have boost readily available throughout this thing. I know Wyatt, Rick, both of those guys are fast. They're big singles with a lot of nitrous. I don't want to be filling up bottles all the time. We're going to put 3 turbos on it and let it eat. So F250 triple turbo Duramax Allison 1000 series, and then for the fuel system we are going to run ourselves the classic Air Dog, and then we're going to run ourselves an Extra G 14 mil and some pretty big sticks. I don't know what sticks we're going to run yet, but they're going to be big. As for the rear end of this thing, I don't know if this 10 1/4 is going to hold it, so I might be looking at doing a 10 1/2 AAM. That's an axle that I know that works. I know that we can get good gearing for it. It's probably what we're going to end up moving to for an axle. Now, the $1 million question that I have is, do we go ahead and cut the frame up, make this thing a short bed, be able to get better weight transfer out of it, and leave it 2-wheel drive, or leave it a long bed, put a Dana 60 in the front of it, take that transfer case I've had sitting here for forever, and make this thing a 4-wheel drive Duramax swap? Like, that's what I want to do. However, I feel like for drag racing, for a drag and drive, if we were to do a short bed on this thing, make it like a Ford Lightning. I already have the Lightning front valence all for this thing, and we're able to get better weight transfer at that point. We're reducing our rotating mass. We've got lighter overall truck because we don't have that front axle. We don't have the transfer case. It makes sense to do a 2-wheel drive, but at the same time, like, I feel like we get a lot more function out of a 4-wheel drive truck. So as for 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, or if we do a short bed, leave it a long bed, I don't know yet. Comment below and tell me what y'all think. I like the idea of a long bed. I like the idea of doing a 4-wheel drive long bed. I understand that's a lot more weight and a lot more rotating mass. I feel like it'll work pretty good though. We should still be able to run 10s with a long bed and 4-wheel drive. And of course, this is going to be the drag and drive truck, like I said. So this thing is going to end up with a cage in it. The interior is going to get absolutely gutted. We are keeping nothing that we don't need inside of it and putting a cage in it. So it's not going to be like something that we need to daily drive, and it doesn't really have to be nice. It just has to go fast. Whereas if I were to cage the Shorty, I'd feel bad because the Cadillac interior wouldn't work with it anymore, and it would just kind of ruin the whole function of that truck. As for the interior of this thing, she is pretty cherry. Oh, I'm gonna hate taking the headliner out of this. That is a beautiful headliner. And then of course, same thing. Seats gotta come out. Dash is gonna come out. Door panels. I think some classes we have to have door panels, so I might see how much of the door panel we'll keep, but door panels are probably going to get trimmed, machined. I don't know, maybe we can cut out like just a little section for the armrest and call it a door panel. I don't know how that all works for drag racing. Same thing for the dash, because I think for some classes we have to have a dash, but we'll see how much of that we have to keep. We'll keep whatever the bare minimum is to be able to keep it a street car, but we're going to make this as light as we possibly can. So all this crap behind the dash is going to come out. There's going to be nothing but skin there. Same thing for the seats. We're going to have to pull the seats out of this thing, put some racing seats in it, try to cut down on that weight. As for the engine bay, there's currently nothing in here. All of this AC and air box and crap is going to have to come out of here. All the condensers and coolers are going to come out. It is 2-wheel drive, but doing a Dana 60 in the front is as simple as just changing the spring perches out, adding in a track bar. You've already got your drag link, so the steering box will work. It's pretty straightforward to 4-wheel drive swap these things. We'll have to get rid of that fuel tank back there. We'll just run the fuel tank in the very back. Another reason for keeping it a long bed is this bed is actually pretty good, and we already have it. Like, we don't have to cut the frame down. I know we're gonna have to get drive shafts to be able to do the Duramax swap, but we already have the long bed on here. The tailgate works, the bed is bolted on, like, it's all here, and that's one less thing that I'm gonna have to deal with. And if we learned anything from building the Shorty, I spent all of my time putting the stupid bed on here instead of making this thing go fast or getting a drive shaft. So the more I think about this, I have a feeling that it's going to stay a long bed. Now, if we do the 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive conversion, it's a completely different story. And here's the other thing with leaving it a long bed. When I go through this thing and put the cage in it, I should be able to leave the cage, the down bars coming out of the back of this thing, far enough forwards so that in the future, in a year, 2 years, whatever the deal is, I can be like, you know what, long bed isn't working. Go ahead, take this bed off, put a short bed on it, cut it, slide the axle forwards, and then still be able to keep the cage and keep the entire truck in the way that it sits. That's what I think I can do. I think that's what's going to make the most sense. You know, like I said, it would make sense to also just go ahead and put a short bed on it, buy one drive shaft instead of having to buy a drive shaft later on, and leave it two-wheel drive, because then we get less rotating mass out of it. But this is also the first like drag racing vehicle that I'm going to build, so I'm expecting to make a lot of mistakes, and I'm expecting to have to start over in the future once I start understanding a lot more of this drag racing stuff. Also, this vehicle holds a lot of sentimental value to me, because this is actually one of my buddy's trucks that has saved my bacon a many a time. So like, this isn't just some piece of crap that I found off a marketplace. This has got a good bit of history, and this is something that is going to be here to stay. That's why I'm okay getting married to this thing. Anywho, there's the deal on the sick week truck. The built Fmax, that's finally coming around. I feel like that's going to be awesome. And because of that, I need to start looking to sell the Shorty. And the reasoning behind that is the Shorty really doesn't have a place in my fleet anymore. So it was kind of the drag racing truck. It was the cheap truck challenge. However, it's got the Cadillac interior in it. It's got headliner, radio. Like, it's a really nice truck, and I enjoy daily driving it. It gets 22 miles to the gallon and whatnot. It is an absolutely fantastic daily driver that still plays around on the street. But I've already got my Caddy for a daily driver. So like, this is going to be the daily driver. So that can't be the daily driver. And let's be honest, between the Shorty and a TDI swapped Rabbit, I'm taking the TDI swapped Rabbit every single day. With it being such a short wheelbase and everything, it's not going to be able to replace the tow truck. We've already got the 67 basically coming in clutch for towing. This thing's got the dually conversion on it. It's got the flatbed on it. It's got tooling on it. Like, this is, in my opinion, the ideal setup for towing to be able to go to these events. And then of course we've got the Fmax coming in to be the like play on the street race truck kind of deal that it's going to be. So that just basically makes the Shorty obsolete. It'd be an absolutely fantastic truck for somebody that wants a Duramax to daily drive, because the fuel efficiency of this thing, the ride quality and everything is fantastic. It's great. It's honestly a really amazing truck to play around with, especially with the interior that's in it. However, it doesn't work for me anymore, because, well, all of my bases are covered, and as you can see, I'm kind of running out of space with all the vehicles I have out here. This, I need to pull the motor and trans out for the Rabbit. That's gonna be the next big project that we've got coming up. So the Mark IV Jet is gonna disappear. Obviously, that's gonna become the race truck. I'm not gonna start working on that until I get my daily figured out. And of course, the 67 is gonna stay the tow pig, so I need to get rid of the Shorty and the Jetta, which we're basically parting that out because I'm stealing so many parts off of it for the Rabbit. Anywho, on the next episode, we're gonna start working on this thing. We're doing a TDI swap onto it, so a ALH with a 5-speed. This is something I have wanted for a very long time. I love the little pickup trucks. I feel like this is the ideal definition of a daily driver. So watch out for that on the next episode. And of course, I need to give a shout out to all the sponsors that we have coming on board with this thing. We have got Exergy Performance coming in with the fuel system. They're gonna be doing the pump and helping out with the injectors. And then of course, we've got AirDog coming on board to be able to get the fuel from the tank to those Exergy parts. They're gonna be a huge deal of this. It gives us the fuel, filtration, and everything else that we're gonna need. On the Duramaxes, they don't have a lift pump. AirDog fixes that problem. HSP Diesel, they're coming on board for a lot of the airflow products. They're doing manifolds, up pipes, some valve covers. I'm sure I'm missing a couple other different pieces that they're going to be able to provide for this build to be able to help at RPM, especially with the triple turbo kit that's going to be on it. Duramax Tuner, they're coming on with one of their stealth turbos for the Valley charger. That's going to be pretty big just because of the way that we're able to set that charger up to begin with. It works well with the up pipes that we're getting from HSP, and the turbos are just absolutely fantastic. We've had the 67 on both the 67 C10 and the Shorty. Their turbos just work. Mile to Wild Motorsports, they're coming on board and helping out with the fuel to be able to do this trip. I know buying diesel isn't exactly the cheapest thing to do. However, I think our efficiency will be better, but they're coming on board and being able to help us out with that. Then of course, we've got Hawk Diesel Performance coming on board. They just bail me out in last minute situations where I'm like, hey, I need this part. And they're like, not an issue, we'll get it to you. So to be able to have them coming on board helps me out a ton because I know I'm gonna forget stuff and they're gonna be able to take care of it. GM Gauge Specialists, these guys are coming on board and doing the instrument cluster for the Fmax. They've done the instrument cluster in my 67 C10, the Cmax. That instrument cluster is spot on. It looks great. It's American as can be. And then of course we got the guys at BTW Racing, Ethan. Those people came in. They're the ones that got us the body to be able to start doing this whole thing. Like, they're the reason why the Fmax is happening instead of running the shorty or trying to build a Ranger or something like that. And then of course, last up on the dock, it's gonna be Nick Lateau with the Plumber's Crack van, burnout van, whatever you want to call him. He's the one that made a lot of this stuff happen for Sick Week. That's why we're doing it. That's why we're doing drag and drive. So he's got a good bit in this deal.